I know at the end of the Devil May Cry 2 review I said that the next game I'd be reviewing was probably something not many had heard about, but I had completely forgotten that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was actually coming out, and it just so happened to align with when I finished all the stuff for the playthrough of Devil May Cry 2, so I figured the stars aligned. Why don't we take a look at it? So I love Ratchet and Clank, and when I saw that this was revealed, I was so ready for it. As a young child, I had Ratchet and Clank Cracking Time and All for One, and I played so much of the former that I lost the disc about 10 years ago. I own it now, but it still annoys me that I never found it. But All for One was great when you're a dumb kid who needs a game to play with his friends on weekends. But this isn't about those games. I'll get to the whole series eventually, but for now, let's see if Rift Apart is the next-gen experience it claims to be. The game opens up with a parade celebrating the heroic adventures of Ratchet and Clank. And this intro is amazing. It's a small recount of some of the past games. Quark's there, Skid McMargs, and even Rusty Pete's there to celebrate. But things go wrong as they always do when Goonsflesh show up to crash the party. And once those guys are dealt with, Clank reveals that he rebuilt the Dimensionator from Tools of Destruction so that Ratchet could find the dimension that the Lombaxes fled to during Emperor Tachyon's attack. But Dr. Nefarious has different plans, and he steals the Dimensionator so that he can bring Ratchet and Clank to a dimension where he rules the galaxy because he's sick of being the one who always loses. Ratchet shoots the Dimensionator to try and stop him, but this causes it to go haywire and starts opening rifts everywhere, causing dimensional chaos. Nefarious, not accepting being defeated, again, shoots one last rift and sends the three into Dimension 2? And the Dimensionator explodes, separating Ratchet and Clank. Clank is broken up fairly badly and is found by this dimension's version of Ratchet, a Lombax named Rivet. She takes Clank off planet, and Ratchet, after watching her take off, starts allying himself with the Resistance so that he can search for Clank. Rivet brings Clank to her hideout on Sargasso. She's not very trusting of him at first, but after seeing that he knows another Lombax, she warms up to him quickly. Then? They then find out that the dimensions being f***ed with cause multiple dimensional anomalies. Clank is able to go into and fix the anomalies where he meets Gary, who tells him that he'll need to fix all of the anomalies so that the dimensions don't all get destroyed. So he fixes this one and then returns to the real world. In order to fix Clank's communicator, Rivet takes Clank to Zerky's, a bar run by Mr. Zircon, who has given up his
Mr. Zircon is here to kill
violent tendencies. She's then interrupted by Pierre Lefebvre, who Clank recognizes as this dimension's Rusty Pete. Pierre has the part needed to fix Clank, so Rivet fights his crew in the bar's arena for it. Once she fixes Clank, he manages to contact Ratchet, and they decide that the only way to fix everything is to rebuild the Dimensionator. So Ratchet heads to Savali to find the blueprints that was left by the Lombaxes. Ratchet actually meets Gary, who tells him that the blueprints are in the archives and that his assistant can help him find them. When Ratchet gets to the archives, it just gets up and walks away because nefarious goons are attacking the town. When they get up, a small robot falls in front of Ratchet, who's this dimension's version of Clank, named KT-764, but Ratchet gives her the nickname Kit. Once they save the monks of Savali, they go to the archives and find out how to make the Dimensionator, along with a map of every single dimension made by the Lombaxes. Once they get out, they're swarmed by nefarious goons, so to protect the archives, Kit turns into a giant war robot and tells Ratchet about how she was made for Emperor Nefarious and ended up injuring someone who was and came to Savali to keep the galaxy safe from her. But Ratchet convinced her to come with him to Dave the Dimensions? Save the Dimensions anyway, because he misses having a small robot on his back to accompany him during giant firefights. They then head to Kadar Station to get the Dimensionator built. The problem is the place is run by Nefarious, and they'll have to use these Blizon crystals to hop between this dimension and one where the station is broken down. And this happens instantly. In 1 second, an entire new area is loaded and you're brought there seamlessly. Yeah, it's still like a overhaul of just the previous area. It's like templated over, but even with the dimensional pockets, it's a portal to a new area and it switches instantly. There are no loading screens in this game. Obviously the game still has to load, but it's hidden so well that you'll never really notice it. This is great. Outside from needing to find his way around, Ratchet finally has a break from fighting back. Holy shit, what is that? Juice? No thanks, I'll take the other dimension, please. Never mind, they're still after me here. So after jumping between the broken and fixed dimensions and trying not to get turned into juice by juice, we found out that the power source of the fixed dimension is juice. But now he fights with us, and when we take him back to the other dimension, he gets a little close with his dimensional counterpart. But they power the station so that Ratchet and Kit can make a shell for the Dimensionator. While this is happening, Rivet and Clank go to Blizzard to get the phase quartz needed to power the Dimensionator. But when they get there, they find that the planet has been destroyed. In an attempt to get anything from this trip, Rivet also finds a Blizon crystal and finds a way to a dimension where the planet is still intact. They find a miner in the destroyed planet who starts trying to send a message between dimensions. While she's fiddling around with that, Rivet helps the intact dimension's miners find their robots and becomes best friends with Jim. Say hi, Jim.
Happy noises.
So once they turn on the drill to mine the phase quartz, the other dimension's miner gets a message and tells them don't turn on the drill because that's what destroyed the planet, and I'm getting sick of keeping track of these dimensions. So they destroy the drill and accidentally break the phase quartz because of f***ing course they did. But Rivet knows of a rumored fixer that could fix it. So they go find the fixer, who's a giant broken down robot. Ironic. On their way there, they're interrupted by Pierre and his pirate gang. But they're quickly dealt with, and Pierre decides to open fire on his own ship in a last-ditch attempt to take Rivet with it. Kind of f***ing pirate is this guy? Everyone knows that Article 4 of the Pirate Code is never blow up your own ship. What a f***ing amateur. But once Rivet turns the fixer on, he starts to throw a tantrum about how everything is broken and life is meaningless, so he starts blowing everything up. Like, well, I know everything's broken and life is meaningless, and you don't see me blowing everything up? What a big baby. But Clank, using his superpower of
Improvisation.
gives the fixer new hope for life, and he fixes the phase quartz as a thank you. Also, side note, characters say thank you a lot in this game. Get used to it. So, we have all we need to build the Dimensionator. You know what that means. So Dr. Nefarious shows up and takes the Dimensionator, but once Rivet beats him to try and get it back, Emperor Nefarious shows up and takes it for himself and escapes with Dr. Nefarious to Rivet's home planet, and to find the other key members of the Resistance. So Rivet and Kit go back to Sargasso to stop Team Nefarious, and Ratchet and Clank go to Ardolis to warn Captain Quantum that he's the next on the Emperor's hit list. On the pirate base Ardolis, Ratchet and Clank find that Pierre is about to be executed for blowing up his own ship for no good reason. They save him in exchange for Quantum's location and find out that he's this dimension's Captain Quark, and he's also the captain of these pirates. While trying to escape from the pirates, Emperor Nefarious shows up and shoots a rift at them, sending Quantum to Zordon prison. Now back to Rivet and Kit. They head to Sargasso to stop Team Nefarious from sending the planet the way of Alderaan, so they ride a f***ing dragon into battle to stop the invasion. But afterwards, they're caught by the Emperor and sent to a pocket dimension. This does less than nothing to stop them because they've gone into multiple on their own, but on their way out, Rivet tells Kit about how she lost her arm when a war robot caught her. Kit realizes that she might know more about the situation, but decides to keep quiet about it because they don't need any more tension. Once they get out, Emperor Nefarious sends another message saying that he's going to invade other dimensions and rule over them all, despite Dr. Nefarious telling him that's a bad idea, and that no matter how many dimensions he rules over, he'll never feel fully complete. So Ratchet and Clank head to Savali to get the dimensional map before Nefarious gets it, but when they get there, they find out that the place has already been attacked, and Gary has already been captured by Nefarious. Gary leads them to the last dimensional anomaly, where the map is being hidden, but by the time Clank fixes it and takes the map, Emperor Nefarious, like the spawn-camping bitch he is, zaps them to Zordon prison. Rivet tries to stop them, but is stopped by Kit, who tells her to run and goes all war robot. Rivet realizes that Kit was the one who caught her, and Kit rushes Team Nefarious to save the day. So Rivet heads to Zordon prison for an epic jailbreak of everyone, bad guys and all. When she opens the cell that Ratchet and Kit are in, she has a discussion with Kit. Kit starts going on about how she's a weapon. She doesn't want to go with him because she doesn't want to hurt anyone. Rivet tries to convince her otherwise, but Kit insists on going back to Savali. So the gang leaves and starts planning their next move when the Emperor announces that he's going to invade Ratchet's dimension, and at this point you can tell that Dr. Nefarious isn't entirely on board with this interdimensional conquest plan. So all of our good guys, along with Pierre's pirates and Goons for Less, head through the rift that Nefarious left open to try and stop the invasion. Wait, he just left it open? Does he not close the door to his house? I bet his car's probably still running too. Then Emperor Nefarious brings out the big guns with a giant robot that Gary just sends Ratchet into the heart of so he can bring it down, which he brings down very easily. Then, when Rivet goes to confront him, the Emperor brings out every trooper he has to fight Rivet. Man, there's gotta be like at least 7 guys in there. But then Kate comes back like we all knew she was going to and starts blowing things up so that Rivet can focus on Nefarious. Once he's beaten, they send him back to his own dimension with help from Dr. Nefarious pushing him in. Then Clank uses the Dimensionator to stop the dimensional catastrophe caused by Emperor Nefarious shooting the thing too much. Rivet and Kit decide to team up like Ratchet and Clank, and everyone gets sent home, and we're led to believe that Ratchet and Rivet make a pit stop to see the Lombaxes. We're not shown that, but I can assume that that's going to lead into the conflict of the next game. But the story, serviceable. It's nothing great, but the writing is great though. You won't be falling out of your seat laughing, but most of the jokes are at the very least worthy of a that's pretty good. And characters like Pierre are always great to see on screen. I wouldn't mind if at some point Rivet and Kit get their own games in their dimension, maybe stopping their Nefarious from reclaiming his rule, or maybe have alternate dimension versions of other villains like Chairman Drek or the Cragmites, maybe even a game like Ratchet Deadlocked. But that's enough for the story. What do you actually do in Rift Apart? You make dead. It's classic Ratchet and Clank stuff. A buttload of weapons, some platforming, a few puzzles, and an actually fun hacking minigame. It's a weird place to start, but the Clank puzzles and hacking are better than any of those in the previous Ratchet games I've played. Clank has to guide these projections of himself through a course by throwing orbs to manipulate gravity and speed, and hacking puts you in control of Glitch, where she guns down an organic virus created by the Dimensionator. Both of them get fairly challenging by the end, and I never found them annoying or intrusive. There's definitely no 6-axis bullshit. Main gameplay, it's about what you'd expect. Pretty cool weapons, some upgrades that are really cool, like the Headhunter, that's one that creates weak spots on places you shoot tougher enemies. Cold Snap freezes enemies that can explode when you kill them. Mr. Fungal and the Topiary Sprinkler are great for dealing enemies you don't feel like concentrating on. Lightning Storm is great for groups of one-hit kill enemies because the shock spreads when you kill one. The only main gripe, and this is something you've probably heard if you've seen other people talk about the game, is you're never really forced to change things up. Yeah, the main blaster sort of starts to get weak towards the end and it takes forever to dent a guy, but you're never really forced to switch weapons unless you're dealing with shield guys, in which you just switch to an explosive and throw it behind them. New to the combat in this game is a dash that makes you invincible for a short time. This thing's a lifesaver because sometimes just jumping out of the way isn't enough, and the dash creates some extra distance between you and any group of enemies. I'm also kind of a sucker for dashes in games, so take that for what you will. There's also wall running on these specifically designated walls, but it makes the rail grinding segments a lot more cinematic. Well, at least I like to think so, even though it's really no different because you're putting in the same button inputs, but it looks cooler, so leave me alone. You'll need to use all of this if you feel like going for all the collectibles. The gold bolts unlock cheats like they always have. There are these lorbs that were left by the Lombaxes that have some neat references to other games. And if you get all the spy bots, then you get this game's version of the Rhino, tagging enemies and opening a rift that drops something massive on them. I'm not going to spoil it, but when you level it up to level 5, take some shots with it alone, shoot enough, and you might see a familiar face say hi. There is a lack of bosses. There's like 3 the game cycles through aside from story bosses, and aside from the as aforementioned shield goons, nothing ever makes you mix up what weapons you use. But ultimately, it's still pretty fun to mow down loads of enemies with a huge arsenal. I'm still not on board with games being $70 now, but this game was worth it. So that's all I have for now. It was nice to take a break from Devil May Cry, but I think it's about time I got back to it. So join me next time and we'll take a look at Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening. But until then, I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you have a great day. If not, I hope I helped improve it a little bit. Feel free to leave feedback or suggestions. I'm open to those, as I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm done with Devil May Cry. If it's your birthday, then happy birthday. And I'm going to see you guys next time. Bye-bye.